You've been lied to, and the worst part is, you believed it because it felt good. You were told that being nice makes you good, that being agreeable makes you moral, that being quiet, patient, generous, forgiving, even when it cost you everything, makes you noble. They taught you to flinch before conflict and call it virtue. They trained you to surrender before resistance and call it strength. And you smiled through it because every time you erased a boundary, someone patted you on the head and called you a good person. But here's the brutal truth. Being nice is not always kindness. Most of the time, it's just fear dressed up in soft language. It's a camouflage, a survival tactic. It's the desperate hope that if you're small enough, quiet enough, useful enough, they won't hurt you, leave you, or destroy you. You've confused self-erasure with morality. You've mistaken submission for peace. But this script you've memorized, the one that says your needs come last, that your voice should stay low, that your anger is shameful, was written to keep you obedient, not respected, to keep you manageable, not powerful. You've been applauded for your compliance because your compliance serves others. And no one wants you to realize this, because once you do, you stop being easy to use. This isn't a guide for learning to be kind. This is a strategy manual for reclaiming your spine. If you're looking for comfort, close this now. If you want to be liked more than you want to be free, walk away. What follows isn't gentle, because the world you live in isn't. This is war, and in war, nice people die first, not because they're weak, but because they refuse to fight when it matters. They hesitate. They overthink. They compromise while others conquer. They trade strength for acceptance, only to be discarded the moment their usefulness ends. If you've ever wondered why being nice leaves you exhausted, invisible, and hollow, it's because you've been betraying yourself again and again, and every time you called it goodness. Stop, right now, before the habit becomes your grave. Everything you were taught about virtue needs to be burned down, because being good isn't about being liked. It's about being sharp, unshakable, brutally honest, and when necessary, feared. This isn't about becoming cruel. It's about becoming clear, about learning to recognize when your niceness is no longer compassion. It's self-sabotage. And when that happens, the only moral choice is rebellion. You've been disarmed by design. But that ends here. You were not born a fortress. You were taught to build one, brick by brick, but made of paper walls and unlocked gates. Not to keep the world out, but to make it easier for the world to walk in. You were taught to lay down your weapons, to never raise your voice, to plaster on a smile even when you're bleeding internally. You were taught to be agreeable, flexible, nice, not for your benefit, but for theirs. This is not an accident. This is architecture, deliberate design. Han Feizi understood this centuries ago when he stripped the illusions from politics, morality, and power. Where others dressed virtue in silk, Han Feizi dressed it in iron. Where others praised good character, he asked a better question. Good for whom? That question alone shatters the illusion of niceness, because niceness is rarely neutral. It's a weapon, just not yours. Han Feizi lived during the Warring States period in ancient China, a time when kingdoms didn't have the luxury of sentimentality. He rejected the Confucian idea that virtue should be internal, cultivated, and gentle. For him, power was the only reliable currency. Systems only function when people behave predictably, and people only behave predictably when incentives and punishments are clear, swift, and unavoidable. So when you walk through life, hoping that your kindness will be repaid, that your patience will be appreciated, that your self-sacrifice will be seen, you are operating on a false system. You're hoping Confucius was right. You're gambling your sanity on the idea that virtue is contagious. Han Feizi would laugh in your face. He would tell you, people follow rules not because they are good, but because it is dangerous not to. Now apply that to your life. You keep waiting for others to notice your effort, your quiet loyalty, your restraint, but they won't, because you haven't made it dangerous to ignore you. You've made it comfortable, profitable, expected. The fortress of self-respect isn't built by letting everyone inside. It's built by drawing lines so sharp they leave marks. You want peace? Then make it clear where war begins. Most people confuse their internal discomfort with moral clarity. They think, if it feels bad to say no, then it must be wrong. But feelings are not laws. And the world isn't a courtroom. It's a battlefield. And on a battlefield, mercy without strategy is suicide. Han Feizi taught that the ruler who survives is the one who understands how perception controls behavior. If your reputation is that of someone easily manipulated, endlessly tolerant, infinitely giving, then you will be drained until there's nothing left. Not because people are evil, but because systems reward efficiency, and using you is efficient. You give more than you demand. You bend before you break. You absorb what others reject. You excuse what others would punish. You've trained the world to treat you this way. Your niceness has become your consent, but you don't need to stay this way. The fortress can be rebuilt, in stone this time, but it will require a brutal shift in your identity. You need to stop being someone who seeks peace through surrender. You must become someone who creates peace through power. Niceness is reactive. Strategic strength is proactive. Niceness waits to be told what's needed. Power states what is non-negotiable. Niceness apologizes before speaking. Power speaks and lets others apologize for misunderstanding. There's a reason Han Feizi wrote about the two handles, punishment and reward, as the only tools that work reliably in any system. Not intention, not emotion, not reputation, just consequences, immediate, predictable, unavoidable. If you want to stop being used, then you must become a fortress of consequences. When someone crosses a line, there must be cost. When someone disrespects you, there must be withdrawal. When someone assumes access, there must be resistance. This isn't cruelty, it's structure. And without it, you become a resource, not a person. Han Feizi saw this clearly. If systems are built on leverage, then the individual must learn to become leverage themselves. And that means your niceness has to be put on trial. Every time you feel the urge to smile instead of speak, to stay instead of leave, to give instead of guard, ask yourself, is this kindness? Or is this compliance? Is this generosity? Or is this fear of conflict? Is this morality? Or is this programming? Because if it's programming, you've been hijacked. Niceness, when detached from strategy, becomes a sedative. It lulls you into believing that you are safe because you are silent, that you are respected because you are consistent, that you are loved because you are low maintenance. You are none of those things. You are just the easiest to ignore. A fortress without gates is not generous. It's abandoned. Han Feizi would not tell you to become mean. He would tell you to become useful, to yourself, to become orderly, predictable, immovable in your standards, flexible in your tactics. He would tell you that moral strength is not about internal peace, it's about external dominance. And the only way to reclaim your strength is to enforce your boundaries like a state defends its borders, swiftly and without apology. So let's be clear. Niceness is not a virtue if it leads to your own erosion. And there is no virtue in being the last to speak, the first to forgive, the one who never complains, never demands, never disrupts. That isn't virtue. That's erasure. You can't build a fortress if you refuse to lift stone. You can't protect your peace if you refuse to prepare for war. You don't need to become aggressive, but you do need to become unyielding. You don't need to destroy others, but you do need to stop destroying yourself for them. Your time, energy, attention, and care are not infinite. They are not owed. And anyone who treats them as disposable should be met with silence. Not more niceness. Reclaim the gate. Choose who enters. Decide what stays. And if the world doesn't like it, let them rage outside your walls. You want to see how this betrayal shows up in real life? Look at your calendar. Look at your inbox. Look at the way you shrink when someone raises their voice. You keep saying yes to things you resent. You keep giving second chances to people who would never offer you one. You walk on eggshells, overthinking every sentence you send, worried that asserting yourself might be too much. You spend hours rehearsing the right tone, crafting messages to be as soft, sweet, and self-erasing as possible, and then you wonder why you're exhausted. That's not virtue. That's warfare, and you're the only one playing without armor. Every time you flinch at the idea of saying no, you reinforce your role as servant, not sovereign. You think that by being overly understanding, they'll appreciate you. But what they actually learn is this: you have no limits, and people don't respect what has no boundaries. They consume it. This is why your relationships feel one-sided, why your workplace treats your silence as consent, Why your friends expect you to always be available, always agreeable, always swallowing your discomfort. You taught them that. You trained them, like Han Feizi warned, with reward and no punishment. You taught them that mistreating you carries no cost, that your peace comes at your expense, not theirs. You think being the better person keeps you safe, but in truth, it keeps you replaceable. Now look at why your strategies keep failing. You read self-help. You practice boundaries by whispering them and hoping no one notices. You try to communicate with people who profit from your silence. You over-apologize, over-explain, overthink. You think if you can just make them understand, they'll change. But this isn't about clarity. It's about leverage, and you have none. The truth is brutal. People don't change because you're hurting. They change because they're losing access. You've spent your life trying to earn respect through niceness, but niceness is not respected. It's exploited. What you need isn't more empathy. It's more consequence. You need to stop treating boundary violations like misunderstandings. They're not. They're tests. And every time you let one pass, you teach the other person how to win at your expense. Traditional advice tells you to be assertive but kind. But in power dynamics, kindness without consequence is a signal. You can ignore me safely. That's why your growth doesn't stick. Because you're trying to fight a battle with diplomacy in a world built on force. You're trying to be understood in a system that only listens to pain and pressure. You're building a fortress and leaving the doors wide open. You don't need to explain why your no means no. You need to let it mean no, and then act like it. So how do you shift? How do you stop being the fortress everyone walks through and start being the one no one enters without invitation? It starts with silence. Not the silence of fear, but the silence of refusal. Stop explaining yourself. Stop softening every truth. Start treating your time and energy like territory, not a gift basket. Say no without a reason. Walk away without apology. Let them guess why you stopped answering, because clarity is a privilege earned, not owed. Build small rituals of sovereignty. Set phone hours. Don't answer right away. Let your delay become a signal. Stop showing up for people who don't show up for you. Don't announce it. Just disappear. Turn "I'm sorry" into "that doesn't work for me." Turn "maybe" into "no." Turn "let me know what you need" into "here's what I'm available for." If they push back, good. That's how you know the fortress is working. Your life should not be a shared hallway. It should be a walled city, and the cost of admission should rise with every act of disrespect. The first step to reclaiming power is denying access, not negotiating it. But power isn't just about denying others. It's about confronting the enemy inside your walls, the part of you that equates being liked with being safe. This is the great lie, that approval equals protection, that the more people admire you, the less likely you are to be harmed. But admiration is not defense, and you are not a mascot. You are not here to be palatable, to be easy, to be liked. You are here to be unshakable. Your softness must become selective. Your empathy must become strategic. Your warmth must become a weapon. Not against others, but against the part of you that keeps betraying your own standards. You must punish your own cowardice. When you say yes out of fear, stop and correct it. When you smile to make others comfortable while bleeding inside, withdraw. When you catch yourself excusing disrespect to keep the peace, remind yourself, there is no peace without control of your own territory. Start with one act of refusal per day, one confrontation you've been avoiding, one truth spoken without editing. And when the panic rises, smile. That's your old system trying to survive. Burn it. Finally, understand that being a fortress means constant vigilance. You will be tested. Your past self will want to sneak back in and keep things smooth. People will guilt you, praise the old version of you, punish the new one. That's good. That means they noticed. That means it's working. But now you need advanced tactics. Start treating relationships like contracts. What do they bring? What do they cost? Are they reciprocal or parasitic? Audit your social circle. Distance anyone who drains you. If someone only calls when they need something, that's not a friend. That's a strategy wearing a smile. Keep emotional reserves. Don't spend all your kindness in one place. Learn to retreat before you're depleted. Reward consistency, not charisma. Enforce your standards like a state enforces law. No exceptions, no negotiations, just clear lines and consequences for crossing them. When someone tests you, and they will, Don't escalate. Don't justify. Just close the gate. Your presence should feel earned, not expected. Your peace should feel costly, not convenient. Being a fortress isn't about isolation. It's about sovereignty, and no one respects what isn't defended. Now that you see it, you don't get to unsee it. You don't get to go back to being nice and pretend it's strength. You don't get to keep offering pieces of yourself as tokens of virtue. You don't get to stand in the open, unguarded, and call it love. Because now you know, they didn't admire your selflessness. They exploited it. They didn't love you for being easy. They depended on it. And the moment you become harder to use, they'll show you who they really are. So what are you going to do? You have two choices: rebuild or rot. You either become the fortress, deliberate, unshakable, defended, or you remain the doormat, waiting for mercy in a world that rewards force. It's not enough to understand this intellectually. Insight without action is cowardice. Real change begins at the gates, with who you let in, how you respond to disrespect, and what you demand in return. Not someday, not when it feels safe. Now, because the longer you wait, the more familiar your prison becomes. So draw your line today. Cut off what drains you. Speak what burns in your throat. Reject comfort if it costs your integrity. Burn the image of who they trained you to be and become who you were meant to be. Someone who is not nice, but formidable. If you're ready to stop betraying yourself, say it out loud. Write it in the comments. I am the fortress. And remember, this isn't about rage. It's about resolve. Let the world adjust to your power, or let it break against your walls.